Sign up to Rough Trade Club and get the best new music delivered to your door, free shipping and benefits in store. Don't miss the benefits of Rough Trade Club, from getting Rough Trade's Album of the Month in an exclusive pressing delivered directly to your door, to free shipping on all your orders and discounts at the bar and on second-hand records in store. Use the voucher code CLUB101POD to get a third off your first 3 months. Sign up now at roughtrade.com/club and get the most out of Rough Trade. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties, and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's where I speak to artists about all the jobs they used to do and all the jobs they do now. And a lot of that time becoming a full-time artist, that workload on their plate gets bigger and bigger, because I don't think people have assistants in the way they used to. It's not that kind of world in the music industry now. And that's what I'm interested in, getting those personal stories of not only their achievements and everything they've worked towards, but what that really means on a day-to-day level. Right now it's Christmas. It's 28th of December. It's the early afternoon. I've drank too much coffee. No other time in the year that you wake up not knowing whether it's breakfast, lunch or tea, and you haven't had another cheese since earlier this afternoon. I'm freaking out. My girlfriend's gone away back to Germany. In the last 6 hours, I've become a crypto bro. Who knows what's going on? I want to do these holiday reruns, not just because the music biz is virtually non-existent during Christmas time, but it's because I'm scared that people will forget about this show. And the 300 episodes plus that I've done, there are guests that I'm aware that some of you haven't heard. Maybe you picked up on the show last week, maybe a few months ago, but there's episodes from years ago that I'm really proud of, not in a arrogant sense, but more in a way that, damn, I feel lucky that I got to speak with them and get some stories that I'd never heard before, moments that made me feel something. Kevin Morby has a delightful and at times tragic story. He moved to Brooklyn at an early age. I think he was 16, 17. Straight after school, he bailed and moved to Brooklyn without really a plan, and met a crew of friends, music fans, party people. And as people came and went, including one of his close friends who he shared a bed with when he needed to, Kevin was also a member of Woods and the Babies before finding a solo voice, moving to LA to pursue music under his own name and becoming the person that lots of us know about today. Now is a really amazing time for music in the way that we find out about someone like Kevin Morby, and then with everything at our fingertips, we can search back to Woods and to the Babies. Got Old by the Babies is one of my favorite tracks. This is one of my top 10 of all time. Morby's latest record, This Is a Photograph, came came out earlier this year. There's also a bumper edition called More Photographs, a continuum that came out in May. He's such a fantastic songwriter, kind of to chart his story, to chart his voice throughout his records. This is a Photograph, is the latest full body thing that we got from him, and it's just such a tectonic, overwhelming wash of feeling. I feel like when you listen to his records, you're not really listening to the chords or even the lyrics. You're tuning into the energy, to the feeling that he has. So, and that's a special thing. If you want to hear this full episode, this is just a 10-15 minute snippet, one of my favorite moments from the full episode. If you do want to hear the full chat, you can go back to 2020 and dig back. Maybe it's easier to Google search Kevin Morby 101 part-time jobs, but this is a pretty good section of it, and I hope you enjoy it. A shout out to our sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival, happening in Cheltenham, just a few hours away from London on the train, here in the UK. Gaslight Anthem is headlining, Manchester Orchestra's playing, Better Lovers, Gouge Away, Teenage Wrist, The Mysterines, Hot Mulligan, Boston Manor, and that's all just the first lineup. The Gaslight Anthem are headlining the Thursday. We don't know the headliners for the Friday and the Saturday yet. There's also a Wednesday. 2000 Trees is a wonderful independent festival. All the vendors are independent. You're not going to be buying some bad beer and some bad food. All these places, the whole experience is a nice feeling. If you want to get your ticket, prices are about to go up on the 1st of January, 30% off your ticket if you buy between now and then from 2000trees.co.uk. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Eka and also Ampolo here. Ampolo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians to practice, record and collaborate. And there's some new features coming on there, aren't there, Rebecca? You can start making money as an artist. Other artists can remix your songs. What's going on over there?
So we've heard people say before that the magic of the app is the fact that you're able to upload any music, remove your instrument and play along so you feel part of the song. I mean, there's really no feeling like it when you're playing with one of your favourite songs and you feel like you're part of that band. We have revolutionary tools which allow you to layer your audio and video recordings to share and collaborate with others in your own real-time project. And that's all thanks to our AI music separation.
All right, Ampolo, download it now. Right, cheers for bearing with. Here is a snippet, a good section of my chat with Kevin Morby from 2020, here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. 101 Part-Time Jobs. So when you moved from Brooklyn to LA, you're working sort of cafe jobs. I've read about in Brooklyn, and some cycling jobs. Is that right?
Yeah. The biggest, most steady job I had was doing bike delivery for about 5 years. And then around that, I had a bunch of other jobs. Like I was babysitting for this family who I'm still very close with, and doing a lot of odd jobs at the time. Craigslist was like a big thing. And I had a couple of friends who had trucks, and we would, they had the sort of businesses of just being Craigslist moving guys. And so I would do that with them every once in a while. Those are probably like the most hilarious stories of just failure, of just someone trying to save a few dollars by not hiring a real moving company and then getting us in there and just us breaking shit and losing stuff. Like, so horrible, those poor people. But but then I worked as at a cafe was my last real job, outside of being a musician. But when I think about like what I did before music, it's bike delivery is like the most sturdy thing.
Did you sort of acclimatize? Did you kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like subscribe to that kind of bike messenger lifestyle? I mean, I know a few people in London, and there's very much like a lifestyle that they have.
Not at all, actually. It's funny because in Brooklyn, where I was doing it at, there's like two types of bike messengers. There's like the diehard people that I think you're talking about, who had like fixed gear bikes that were really nice, and like they would deliver for like, yeah, exactly. And they'd have like 8 different restaurants that they're working for at any given moment, and they were really good at it and took it really seriously, and they like kind of like how I am with music, like any money they made on it, they'd put it back into like their biking gear or their bike, or it was a lifestyle, I guess. And then there was people like me, and there's a lot of people like me, and I guess we were just actually musicians looking to make money in between tours. It's kind of like the most dependable job as a musician. And just people, we had like the shittiest bikes. We had, like you'd see people out like in the winter doing bike delivery who took it seriously, and they'd have like heat tech gear and they looked cool and like water resistant stuff. And then there's people like me who would just like layer up with like hoodies and like, like just clothes that would get soaked and like, dollar store gloves, and just, we looked like little kids out there on bicycles. And yeah, our bikes were kind of like the shittiest things that we could, like $100 bikes that we could just run into the ground. All my bikes that I would like, use them for like 2 years, and then they would just like die, and I would just like leave them on the sidewalk and just buy a new one,
And not to be a bummer, I mean, I love that aspect. It's I'm sure you got some funny stories from that, but it's pretty dangerous, right?
It's so dangerous. It's so funny when I go back to New York now, I have so much respect. And since like for 5 years I was delivering food, so
that's a long time. 5 years is a long time.
It's a long time, and that was always in between tours and stuff. And so I'd go on tour, and again, a lot of those tours I'd come back having lost money. So I would be like, I have to work as much as possible. Like I would be on the road, be like, I'm going to be back in a day. Can I work every day this week? And so, I would get home and just jump right back into it. But since then, no matter what, if it's a pizza delivery coming in a car or someone walking or someone, riding the bike, I have so much, I tip my delivery people so much ever since that part of my life. But it's so dangerous. And when I go back to New York now and it's the winter, I see people out, it'll be like freezing rain or snow, and those are the busiest times to be a delivery person. And I lived that for like 5 different years, and like that's where you make most of your money. But it is fucking crazy. It is so like to just have to take out like whatever, like 15 orders out into like literally blizzards, and you're like, here I go, and you're risking your life. It's so dangerous. You're on like, and the thing about being a bike delivery person is everyone hates you, like from cars to the other bike messengers who actually take their job seriously, and then the waiter doesn't like you because you're kind of in their way as you're like packing orders. The kitchen doesn't like you because they have to make your order like as quick as possible. People in the restaurant don't really like you. Pedestrians don't really like you. It's like everyone hates you, and also you're making like the least amount of money out of anyone in the process. And and then people, you get, especially in the winter, like what I'm talking about, or like in rainstorms, you get to people and they're mad that their food is cold, and it's this very thankless job, but a job I was very fortunate to have, because I don't know any other job really that would have allowed me to go on tour as often as I was, and still allowed me to make money when I'd come back.
And that must have kind of shaped your identity. I mean, if you didn't have like, thick, tough hands and a thick, tough attitude before that must have given you that.
Yeah, I guess so, in a way. I mean, and I was pretty young at the time, so I was just down for any sort of adventure, I guess.
Yeah.
And these are times where I'd be out on the road, and we're crashing on floors, and I would just like smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and get as drunk as possible every night. Like I was just, partying in every aspect of my life, and showing up to work hungover and delivering people fried chicken on my bike all day long. And so, yeah, like I guess that's the thing, is now being 32, and when I do go back to New York and I see someone delivering food in the snow, I'm like, I literally don't think I could physically do it now. I don't think I'm strong enough. I think I've gotten weaker. I just think that there's this time in my life where I was young and crazy enough to do it, I guess. But it is actually indeed very dangerous. It's very dangerous to like bike around that constantly, and like holding these bags of food in one hand, so you're only steering with another. It was completely ridiculous. And some of the people you deliver to would be crazy, or you'd like deliver to an orgy, or there's always some weird thing going on.
Did you actually make delivery to an orgy?
I think I did. You remember Snuggies? You remember I just delivered to a bunch of people who were wearing Snuggies, and something sexual was in the air. And so I think maybe the orgy had ended recently, and I was giving them their food. It was like a big order of food. I was never involved in any. There was, to be honest, there was never anything too crazy. I got shot up with like a paintball gun once. Wow. There's a thing called like Devil's Night, the night before Halloween in New York. Hit by a lot of like eggs, like kids love to throw eggs at people, just shit like that. Just like stuff that, again, I was young and crazy enough that like when I got shot by a paintball gun, I was just kind of like, that's funny. Like it's something I would do.
Did you take that lifestyle on with you to LA? Were you still that kind of personality in LA?
Well, No, and eventually I did give up. It became too much for me to do the bike delivery. I was maybe 23 when I quit it. And I remember the last shift that I worked was during like this crazy storm, like a hurricane, like a pre-hurricane sort of storm season. Like there's some huge storm, and I put in my notice. I knew it was going to be my last time working, but it was kind of like a valiant way to go out. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do like the best I can for this last shift. That's through this crazy rainstorm. And so I went out in a blaze of glory. But then I started working in this cafe that my friend Johnny owned, in Midtown Manhattan. So it was like a little bit of a commute for me, and it was totally like nice job. And I was like really thankful to have it from him. But that is really where I started to like prioritize music, and I started to look at my life like, okay, you know what? Like I really want to do whatever it takes to just make music my main thing. And how do I put that into action? And then that's when I moved to LA. And so LA, I sort of had a clearer perspective. Like, when I was 22, 23 doing bike delivery, I was like, well, my life is just I play in bands and I deliver food and I party. But at that point, when I was like 24, I was thinking like, you know what, I want to be a musician. I want to take this very seriously and really do this thing. And so I definitely went to LA in a different headspace.
It makes me, I find when speaking to people who make records for a living or more or less, I find that period of time so fascinating. That period of time when you're like, no, actually, I'm going to try and do this, because I imagine you don't want to say out loud that you don't really want to tell your friends or family necessarily.
I had a very cheesy cinematic moment, and it's very cheesy, but I actually did it where I looked myself in the mirror on a break at this cafe. Where I went into the bathroom for my break, and I was just like exhausted. Like I had opened the cafe that day or something, and I was just, and a lot of this stuff I'm doing it like the night after like playing shows, or I'm just sort of just living this exhausting lifestyle, going on tour, which is in and of itself very tiring, and then coming back home and having to like jump straight into work. And I remember looking myself in the mirror and being like, I can do this. Like if I quit this job and I go to a cheaper city and I just throw all myself into music, I think I can do this, and I have to do it. I have to try. And so I had that moment. And then I kind of like made my plans for how I was going to move to California, and I was going to quit working in this cafe. And on my last day working, I took it as a good omen. I'm a big fan of The Wire.
Do you know what? I've never watched The Wire.
Michael K. Williams, who's plays Omar Little, who's one of my favorite actors, and that's one of my favorite characters of all time. He came in on my last day, and I took it as a good omen. And I don't know why. I don't even necessarily really know his story at this point. I'm a huge fan of The Wire, and he came in, and it was like during this like lunchtime rush, and it was like a line out the door, and I was working the register. The other thing is I don't drink coffee, and I know nothing about it. I don't know how to make it. I've never really drank coffee, and I only had this job because my good friend Johnny gave it to me, and he was the manager. I called him the owner earlier. He's the manager. But without Johnny, I wouldn't have, had a job there. And so I could only really work the register. I was like a non-coffee drinker guy working at a cafe, like a really popular cafe too. So I had this line out the door, and then he came in, and for some reason it just sent me off very optimistic. He came in, and he was with his agent, and his agent was kind of doing like conducting the payment and the transaction. And I saw him next to him, and sort of celebrity style. He had like a hat sort of over his eyes, and he it looks like they had just gone shopping. He had like two bags, like a bag in each hand, and he obviously didn't want to be noticed, or he was trying to like conceal his identity. And so, but I saw that it was him, and I was talking to his agent, and I just had this moment of like, it's my last day. If this goes wrong, who cares? And so, I was like, excuse me, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of all your work. And he kind of like looked up from like underneath his like Yankee ball cap, and he was like, he had this like, he goes, oh yeah? And I was like, yeah, I really am. And then he put down both his bags, and then there's like this big pastry counter that was separating us, and he like shook my hand over it, and it was a really cool moment. And then
great.
I for some reason I was like, this is a good omen. I gotta follow my dreams.
I think if you see something like that, you gotta make yourself feel good about that.
Yeah, it's always a gut feeling for me in celebrities. Like so there's times where I see celebrities out, and I'm like, actually, there's one time I was at the JFK at the airport, and I saw I always forget his name in real life, but he plays McNulty in The Wire. I was gonna say hi to him, but I was like, something just telling me not. He looks tired, and his kids look tired. Like, I'm just gonna not. But yeah, that was a nice moment.
So there he was, Kevin Morby, back in 2020. Loved hearing those stories. The things that have stuck with me from that are, well, Omar from The Wire. I finally got around to watching The Wire, and obviously Omar is a force of nature. Seeing him come into the coffee shop you're working in would give you, and celebrity, being around celebrity gives you that kind of feeling, doesn't it? It's kind of thing, well, they're not superhuman, you know, they are human, and we're fans of music and TV and film, and we put those people on such a pedestal that I think there's something really magical when you see them out and about and see them as people. And in Kevin Morby's case, he took something away from that to build on, which is amazing. Great to hear that story. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you want to hear the full episode of that, you can go back to 2020. It's probably easier to Google search Kevin Morby 101 part-time jobs. I'll be back with a regular routine of 2 episodes a week from the second week of January. We got episodes with Martin from Real Estate and Max from Garden Centre here in London. Subscribe to make sure you get all of those when they come out. Leave a rating or a review if you're able to. Much appreciated. See you soon.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.